Well, actually, we don't even have. Do we have a news topic for today? No. This is a great episode so far.
It's a good thing. Good thing we're warming up.
No cold open today, Nick. Let's do this. Let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Full Grain Podcast. This is actually the first episode that we're recording as the podcasts have been released. Did you know that, Nick?
I did know that.
I'm Phil Callis here with Nick Horween, and welcome, everybody.
We're going to talk about patina and what we know about it.
Well,
what we think we know about it.
And when you say patina, are we talking about patina just on leather, or are we going to be talking about patina on something like copper?
I think there's a bunch of crossover. I don't think it's exactly one-to-one, because with copper and bronze, that patina is more like rust. And it's like another layer that protects it, and I don't think that leather's exactly the same way. But it affects the way it looks, and I think the inputs are, and what leads it to patina are similar. But
okay.
I guess the effects are different, maybe.
So maybe you can explain to me, what is patina?
Maybe we should get an official definition. But I think, to me, patina is just the change and the wear that an item requires over the use of its life, I guess.
Well, when I was asking about patina, the difference between patina on leather and patina on copper, I've noticed in my mind, when I think about patina on leather, it's two things to me. It's the way that the color changes, sort of like where the leather has rubbed up against something and how that has changed. Usually it changes a little bit darker and more rich in color. But also I see a change in luster on leather where it tends to become brighter depending on what the leather tannage is. And then when I think about something like copper or brass, I notice it gets a little bit green, like Statue of Liberty, verdigris, I think is the correct term. How would you describe the effect of patina on leather?
Yeah, I think the patina, there's a big time component to it. So it doesn't, you start out with something that has no patina, and then you gain patina over time. So you're always going in one direction as soon as you've got something that's a finished product, because you've got, unless it's the product is existing in an area with no heat or temperature changes or sunlight or inputs of any kind, then it's going to change. It will change a little bit.
Like even the air, right, will change.
Right, because patina is really just oxidation at the end of the day. I guess mostly, because if you're in small leather goods, that handling it, you're actually adding oils to it and dirt, and that's changing the color too. But there's a lot of color change that comes from UV and just the things oxidizing. Just, it's like kind of like, think about it like rust, but it's not rust, I guess. Things are changing as they're breaking down on like a very granular level.
It's interesting to me that you say the air is the most impactful thing. Is that what you're saying? Or one of the most impactful things on patina for leather?
If you had to pick one thing, probably UV would be, sunlight would give you the most change. Not necessarily in terms of appearance, but just overall would change the leather the most. The biggest impact is handling it. If you're going to handle it and wear it, because we've got that covers a bunch of different inputs in terms of moisture and, like I said, the oils from your hands and dirt. And like, I think that's the biggest change. And then depending on how it's being worn, I mean, the luster will change. I mean, if it's a pair of shoes, they can tend to get duller, and well, I guess over the toe, but they get duller. But maybe where your pants rub, it might get shinier or brighter. But a wallet's going to get brighter as long as it's a men's wallet.
It's kind of polishing in your pocket,
going in and out of your pocket. But if it's in like a purse or a bag, it might not get that polish going on. So, but it's all different. It's all patina. It's just which direction.
See, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about patina in that way, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because I think you're right. I was sort of only thinking about patina as like how I've imparted my style onto the leather by wearing it and using it, but I wasn't thinking about the air as much. If I want a patina and a dramatic development and change over time on my leather, what components would you say are necessary to be tanned inside of the leather, or lack thereof?
Mostly you would associate a vegetable tan or a vegetable retanned leather as one that would patina the most. But that's not to say that other leather doesn't patina. It's just maybe less dramatic or less sort of textbook, I guess. you think about a baseball glove, and that's a baseball, or at least our baseball glove leather is straight chrome, and that patinas a lot, but that's
Yeah,
from
interesting.
getting a lot of repetitive rubbing from a baseball and oiling, and it's on your hand and it gets sweat. So I mean that gets a really nice shiny darkened patina over time. So it's not the vegetable or the tree bark components are not required, but I think that they are, and we'd have to back this up with a actual chemistry person, but I think that they're more volatile and more reactive in general to the environment. So they're more susceptible, or they tend to patina faster just with normal wear.
Something I've noticed when you talk about that chrome tan baseball glove leather aging dramatically and changing and developing patina, I've noticed in my experience, veg tan leathers tend to have only been the things that I've worn that change. And when you bring up baseball glove, that's a really good example, and you've kind of changed my mind a little bit here. Why do you think it is that that chrome tan leather is changing so much more than other chrome tan leathers that I've used before?
I'm not sure it has to do exactly with the leather. I think that you could put a lot of different leathers in that use case and you would get something similar, because it's a pretty intense, it's like an everyday, multiple hours a day, lots of inputs. There's this sand and heat, sunlight and oils from the hands and moisture maybe. So there's a lot of inputs to it, but I mean, it's a lighter, the traditional baseball glove is a lighter color. There's not a lot of, or any finish on it really. So there's no barrier in between the things that are coming from the outside to the leather. And that's not to say that something or a leather that has some finish on it, like a top coat or dyes or pigments, is not going to patina. It might be different. Instead of getting darker, if you've got something with pigments on it, for example, it might go the other way. It might get lighter. Especially depending on the color, because some of those pigments and colors are just naturally more unstable in terms of their color fastness to sunlight especially, and also their desire to sort of stay in place. I mean, some colors are just less color fast and are more prone to rubbing off just by the virtue of the structures of the dyes themselves or the colors.
What colors would those be in your experience?
Well, red, the red family, and then oranges and yellows are usually the ones that are most mobile. But I mean, it depends on, and that depends on a lot too, because there could be, if it's a really oily leather, then there's, kind of in effect a little bit of a barrier that can be created between the actual dyes or pigments. It more likely and the leather itself. So there's some steps you would need to take to make sure things stay in place. But that's maybe getting too far out of the realm of what we're talking about. But yeah, I think that sunlight's a big one. You can go into a shoe store and with Cordovan as an example, you can look at the shoes that are in the window. If they've been in the window for a while, they're not going to be the same color as the shoes that are in the back of the store. So
some people are actually trying to achieve that. There's a little bit of a phenomena called sun fading shell. Have you ever done that?
Not on purpose, but I have. Yeah, I've got some shoes that sat in windows and got really light over time.
Let's look at this from a different direction. What can I do, or what can you do at the tannery to prevent patina from happening?
Really heavy finish and a lot of pigment, which is kind of the same thing. So pigment is like paint, and dyes or stains are like clear coats of just color. So there's no solid particulate in there that's really influencing color, where pigments are like, there's actual like flecks. Kind of think of it like it's like chunks, little mini chunks of things that are a certain color. So that's why they're covering up, because they're actually blocking what you can see, because they're forming a new layer instead of just changing the color. So that creates a barrier, and then those depending on the color just tend to be more robust, I guess, as a very general statement to things like sunlight. And then on top of that, you'd put like a clear top coat. You'd put something that's UV resistant, which you can do, and you'd put something that's got some water resistant properties to it maybe, and then something that's going to protect, like act like a varnish almost, and protect the color under it and then the leather under that. And even something like that, you can still eventually get through. But I mean, the modern finishing techniques are pretty robust if you want them to be. I mean, think about like a leather car interior. I mean, that stays pretty much the same forever. At least it starts. It'll in an older car, you get like in the driver's seat in the corner, you start to get it'll come off a little bit, and because that's where you're using there's so much wear on the leather in that spot.
Well, let's break down the car example. What's in the finish of that upholstery leather for car interiors that's making it last so long and stay that consistent? You probably just said it, but I mean, I imagine it's more than just a UV top coat.
This would be a really good question for someone at a
Well, I mean,
I'm
kind of
dye
leading
supply company, but
I'm leading you towards binders, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it goes even, there are like cationic finish systems, which I can only really talk about by name. But like the binding that's happening is happening all the way back to, I think, even retinge at that point. So
Really?
you're setting it up to be more accepting of whatever you're going to put on top of it. And then you're doing something even before you put finish on it to make it want to hang on to whatever you're putting onto it. And then you build layers that sort of all work together.
It's called a finish system.
Right.
I didn't realize they were putting binders in the tannage, which makes sense actually if you want it to stay grabby.
We'll have to fact check this.
Yeah.
So put
I wouldn't be surprised.
Asterisk next to this when you edit, but I think it's more of
we'll
like
call it phone a friend for tanner. Phone a tanner.
I think it's like a positive negative charge kind of thing.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I think it becomes really, it's gotten to be really technical.
When I bring up the concept of a binder, I was trying to lead you in that direction. I think a lot of people don't understand what we mean. But when I think about it, I think about like painting my home. You have to use a primer on the wall to make sure that your paint sticks to it. Is that the same in the leather finishing world?
Maybe there's some similarities there. I always thought a primer is like you've got something that's heavier and thicker. So you're giving yourself a canvas to work on in terms of color more, but maybe I
think it's both.
Is it both? And it's trying to make it smoother. And
I think the primers have a grabbiness to them. They're sticky.
I don't do a lot of painting.
We're not painters either?
No, we're not economists and we're not painters.
And what was astronomers was the other
We're
one?
also not astronomers.
You're dispelling a couple notions that I had in my mind. Because earlier you said by having a heavy pigment on the leather will reduce the amount of patina that can change and develop on that leather. But you also said a heavy finish will help. Can you help me, in my mind, separate the notion of pigment and paint from finish? You mentioned top coats. Is that what finish is in your mind?
I mean, finish is all of it. I mean, the pigments are finished too.
So when you said really heavy finish, what did that mean?
I was thinking, in that moment, what was going over top of the pigment, but really, like if you're rolling pigments on, like with a roller, or you're spraying them on, or you're brushing them on by hand, in some cases, I guess. I mean, that's all finishing. And then, finishing is not just one step. You don't just take the leather and you smear something on. It's like, oh, that's finished. Like usually like you said, there's
a finish system.
Base coats and then binders and then top coats and maybe a few other things in there depending on what you want the product to do and behave, how you want it to behave and the color too. I mean, you can be adding color, a little bit of color all along if you need to be adjusting color as you go.
Well, how would you finish it? Let's spin it back to the patina conversation. How would you finish a piece of leather to accept the most patina possible and have the most ability to change?
You want the leather to be naked, that's what we would say. So there's almost no, there's nothing on top of it. I mean, that would in a stereotypical traditional sense, if you take a piece of tan or really light colored veg tan piece of leather that has nothing on top of it, that's
naked. Yeah.
Right. No finish on it, no dye, no top coats, none of that stuff we just talked about. I think that leather is going to be the most, will patina the most rapidly just with normal wear. But even if you have that piece of leather and you put stuff on top of it, stuff meaning finish and dye and color, and it'll still patina because those things only last so long. I mean, they're susceptible to the patina process too.
Would you say baseball glove is a good example of a naked leather?
Our baseball glove, yeah, the way we make it.
So earlier you mentioned vegetable tan leather is a good type of leather. If you want patina, you want that leather to change and develop over time. And that's a weird word, veg tan. It's short for vegetable tannage. But what is veg tan leather?
Vegetable tanned leather just means leather that's been tanned using tree bark extracts to preserve the leather.
What's an extract?
An extract is just if you take the tree bark itself and then the part of the tree bark that you want is actually the tannin. So you're trying to, an extract would be less looking like wood and more looking like something that could be introduced into water that would dissolve, that you could then use, to impart its properties into a piece of leather, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of hard to.
Well, I was just looking at my coffee cup here. This liquid in my cup, is this coffee extract?
I guess it's interesting concept. In the tannery, we would say that's coffee liquor.
Yeah.
And then the coffee grounds
would be the extract. Ah. But you're rendering them a slight amount before you would consider it. No. They come to you crystallized, right?
And yeah, crystals and powders, and then with water and
so the
time
crystals,
and steam.
This is so forked into a different conversation, but the crystals and powder are the extracts?
Yes.
And then when they're in liquid form, they're called liquors.
Correct.
Ah, that's what butt liquor comes from.
That's what butt liquor
I'm right on it.
Yeah.
So people don't know what I'm talking about. Shell cordovan is tanned with these tree bark extracts. And when they cook them down and render it, it turns into what they call the tannery's butt liquor, which is great for when you're giving tours at the tannery. People always giggle at the big vessels holding all that liquid. In an earlier episode, you mentioned to me that veg tan doesn't necessarily mean tree barks. And I'm bringing this up because I was editing the audio and I realized that you keyed onto something. Is it any organic material that you're using to tan? Is that what makes it a veg tan? So the example I'm thinking of is olive tanned. Would you consider olive tanned, which is leather that has been tanned with leaves? Would you consider that to be a veg tan leather?
That's tricky because it's such a new. I think I would. I think that it's a pretty new idea, at least to us. So, but it's a non.
Yeah, break down the olive tanning really quick, and then
it's the same thing as a tree bark extract. You've got, it's kind of like a goo that is very astringent, and then those structures are going to go in and do the initial tanning of the leather.
So the olive extracts come to you as like more of like a paste. It's not powdered or anything like that.
You should take this out because I don't know that. I've never actually seen. I think it's I've only ever seen it as like a super viscous solution. Well, but that's when they were like showing it to us at the show, so maybe they didn't want to show us a powder.
Well, let's leave this in the episode.
You can eat it. They have you taste it.
Did you taste it?
Mm-hmm.
What does it taste like?
It's just crazy bitter.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's like eating a coffee bean then, probably.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's like, I think that they're like, here, you can even eat it, and then they give you a mint like right after.
Oh, wow.
Because you don't want the flavor in your mouth, but they're just saying like it's.
See, I thought you were hinting at, in the other episode, I thought you were hinting at veg tan is not necessarily just tree barks, but maybe it is. I don't know. It's a new concept now with the olive.
Yeah, I think that, there are depending on how technical you want to get, there are non-chrome, non-veg leathers. You don't have to use just those. There's more than just those two ways to tan.
So as a marketer, at what point can I say my leather is vegetable tan?
I don't know. I don't think there's any hard and fast. I think that people say that leather is veg tan when it's not sometimes. And how do you?
Well, ethically, how can I say that? Like, I couldn't call that baseball glove leather that's full chrome. I couldn't call that veg and be correct and morally responsible to sell it that way.
Right.
Yeah. But so it's weird. Like, there's no like fine line of like, what does that mean? Maybe this is another one of those marketing spin words that's just come about. And it's such a stupid, like, why call it veg tan? Call it bark tanned, which I think they used to call it.
Timber tanned was a marketing term that we used to use in like the 30s or something. But
I like that more. It's better.
I can only speak because my experience is in our tannery. You think about something like Chrome Excel, which is a very old traditional product, like 1910-ish or a little older, like somewhere around there. So very, very traditional, and not a lot has changed. That is a chrome tanned leather that gets a bit veg retanned. But if you think about it like if you were to hold it alongside a vegetable tanned leather, the only difference is really like the first 2 days. I mean, there's only 24 hours that's different, and that's the chrome change itself.
What are you talking about? Oh, in the tanning process, there's only
Yeah, so it gets chrome tanned, but then we just treat it like a veg tan leather. It gets veg retanned, it gets hot stuffed, it gets anilin finished. It's all that stuff that you would associate with a vegetable tan piece of leather. So I mean, it depends. I mean, you can't call that vegetable tanned, but it's really close to what you, I mean, or almost identical to what you would do to a product in the vast majority of the process. And then the chrome content is 3% of the finished product, maybe somewhere around there.
Well, so I guess that's a good question: is why chrome tan at all? Why not make Chrome Excel full veg or full chrome?
Well, full chrome is a completely different product because you're changing the retanish then. Then the retanish has no tree barks in it, and it's just a different product. I'm not sure I'm sure we've done it, but I'm not sure I've seen it, or we've called it a name that I didn't associate with this sort of line of thought, but it would be softer, most likely, and stronger and more heat resistant. It would probably feel less round. So that meaning like when you flex the leather, it would have less sort of bounce and less
Body
to it, I guess.
it'd be a little bit more drapey.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it depends on what you do to it. It depends on the retanish too. I mean, that's very generally speaking, but
We're forked so deep here, Nick, because there's another deep fork.
because I mean, I was gonna say we have done a non-chrome version of Chrome Excel, which we call XL.
Mm-hmm.
Very creative of us.
Yeah.
It's a really nice leather, but it's not the same at all.
What's the difference?
It doesn't have. I mean, it's not as strong or heat resistant because it doesn't have that chrome base, which is one of the things that chrome does, which is why it's become such a prevalent tanning method, because it's for manufacturing, it's beneficial, especially for shoes, because you can wet a piece of leather and then stretch it over a last, and then you can put it through a dryer, and then you've got a shoe in a lot less time than you would if you were using a piece of cordovan. You did all that, you have to stretch it gently, and then the old school guys would say wood last and let it dry on the last to get the best result, which is a lot more time consuming. You need more time, you need more lasts. So there's a lot going on. It's nice. It's just different.
So generally speaking, chrome tan leather gives you a softer, more durable and resilient to heat. Is durable the right word?
I would say, I mean, like tensile strength is the durability component that's easiest to measure. Because I mean, how do you measure durability?
Mm-hmm. And it's got the heat resistance that's important. And I think something that people don't realize, every chrome tannage from every tannery is different. What would you say is the difference with Horween's chrome tannage, or do you have more than one chrome tan formula?
We have one, but we do outsource some of the wet blue tanning that we do.
What's wet blue tanning? Are we getting forked? This is too deep.
No, I don't know. I mean, you're gonna have to edit all this.
Yeah.
We're so far away from patina right now.
Well, this is part of it, I think, because I didn't realize that chrome tan leather could develop a patina, and I think it's important to know that you can make different chrome tan leathers. So I was kind of wondering, will one chrome tannage from one tannery give me a different aesthetic in terms of patina as opposed to another tannery's chrome tan formula?
Yes, but most of that is coming from the retannage and the finish, because the chrome content can vary, but it's not like a huge number. I mean, think like between 3 and like 4.5%, I guess, is sort of where I'd put it. So it's not like a huge.
What is that percentage of what?
Percentage of the finished product. So if you were to take a piece of leather and grind it up and say, it's 45% water and 22% bark extract and 11% oil, there'd be 3 or 3.5 or 4, somewhere in that neighborhood percent chrome in the finished product, and that's just what's holding the whole thing together, really.
So if you were to advise somebody that's in Patina Thunderdome, for example, and they want the most aggressive and dramatic patina possible, would you advise a chrome tan leather?
It just depends really on what I mean, if you want something if you've got a chrome tan leather that's got a lot of pigment on the surface and you're a carpenter, then that'll get you patina really fast because you're going to rub off and get to the base color. If you're going to the office every day and walking, a mile or whatever and through the rain and not doing a whole lot to it, then the naked veg tanned road would be better.
Okay.
More dramatic, I guess. Better is kind of in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
Do you have any favorite items that have developed for great patina?
Sure. I think that, anything, for me, the stuff that I've gotten that started out as natural, like natural Chrome Excel or natural Cordovan or natural Essex or natural Dublin. All that stuff that...
Light colors.
Light colors that then turn into dark colors, dark browns. But I've got some pretty nice Color 8 Cordovan shoes that have gotten lighter. I like that too.
Maybe in my experience, why I keep feeling like veg tan is a better choice for patina is because of the luster development. I haven't noticed as much luster like on the baseball glove. Does it get bright and shiny just from using it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I have this perception of that luster sort of glassiness that I experience, and I tend to see it most on veg, like shell cordovan, for example. I even see it on the Essex in Dublin. I notice that happens more there. But to me, that's one of the two interesting things about how leather changes is the luster, and it kind of develops like in layers from what I've seen. It seems bizarre to say, but it's like you get this like surface luster just from it polishing as you wear it. It's especially as a wallet. We were talking about the carpenter and scuffing up and scratching boots, shoes, whatever. One of the best options that I've seen that you have a pair of is the wax flash T-Core. What's the wax flash boots that you have?
Vibergs and...
Is it like brown?
Dark brown.
Yeah, those are neat looking.
Yeah, I like those a lot.
Can you describe what wax flesh is and then how that changes in a boot as it gets worn?
Sure. Wax flesh is not... That's kind of our term for it, I guess.
How would other places call that?
Like finished back or resin back, maybe. I guess that's just how we refer to it in our building. But it's...
There's like a stupid leather term for it too. Sorry. Go ahead with the...
Well, there's dubbin.
Dubbin. No, that's not the one I was thinking of though.
That's effectively what we're trying to mimic though, is the dubbin process. Think about the old World War II boondocker, which is flesh out or suede out natural Chrome Excel. And they would take wax and apply it and then polish it and apply it and polish it and apply it and polish it until you build up this dark layer, which would give that suede leather, flesh out leather, some water repellent properties.
Was that the goal for it? For dubbin?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's what we're trying to do. So we've taken the backside and we've sort of done that. Instead of doing it in the finished boot, we've done it laying flat so it's more consistent. So we're adding color and then, a wax and laying and then using basically an iron, like a big machine you feed through with a roller, which irons everything flat and seals it up and makes it shiny.
It's like finishing the leather on both sides.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. You can do that. You can do the same thing on the other side, and then you would have something that's great for a belt because it's finished on both sides, which is where you see it a lot probably is for unlined belts. The normal, like the grain side would be out and the back side would be waxed or resin back or finished back or whatever.
So how does that develop?
How does it age?
Yeah.
Well, that dye and that wax starts to come off and the nap that's underneath starts to stand back up again. So you get almost like a two-tone effect because you're getting the underneath color that's coming through.
As Brett Viberg would say, T-Core. I really like the look of it on your particular wax flesh, especially when you start off with a darker brown or black on top of a lighter base color. And as it scuffs and scratches, it opens up a lot. So instead of being smooth and flat and even, it has this texture depth where there are still some spots that are smooth and flat, but then the scuffed up parts sort of get like more fibrous and more sueded and change color and reveal some more of those lighter tones.
It's nice too on like black on black or dark brown on a dark brown base too, because you get the sheen and the texture changes and the color does too, to a certain degree because of how the light's hitting it, but it's a little bit less dramatic, more subtle, but I like that too. Maybe the easiest way to think about patina or what influences patina is to think about just your own skin because you have a lot of experience with that.
It's my largest organ.
Mine too. Uh,
Jesus Christ.
you think about sunlight and how the humidity outside, if it's humid or if it's dry, and then if you get some dye on your skin, cleaning that off, or you get dirty and you wipe it off versus washing it off. I mean, all of that has an influence on, at least for for a short while, the color and sort of a feel and look of your. I mean, you're not going to develop a shiny patina, I don't think.
Well, you're kind of helping me think about that differently, because if I were to quote unquote tan my skin like you do with Chromexol and put waxes in it, as I rub those waxes, it's probably going to polish up. Is that what's happening? I'm not tanning my body with, although that might be kind of nice.
I don't know.
Like sit in a vat of Chromexol.
I'm not
grease.
sure what. I think that would just have the effect of softening your skin.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, why would it get shinier then? My skin doesn't tend to get shiny.
I think, and there might be multiple ways that this happens, but it's has more to do with density and fill. So something that's firm enough that it'll resist pressure, and then also all those little teeny tiny microscopic and other sized holes that are there that are changing the way the light reflects off of it are getting filled in with wax and oil and dirt, and then you're rubbing that, so you're building up it's a really super smooth surface, and then over on top of that you're putting more maybe dirt and oil and wax from your, in the case of from your fingers, and then you're polishing that, and you're just putting like however many hundreds of super thin layers of stuff that's really smooth in comparison to what's underneath it, I guess.
I've noticed when I polish a pair of my natural shell boots from our buddy Brett, I polish it with just a little bit of water and brushing. And I'm wondering why just water is seeming to activate something in the leather and making it increase in luster. But maybe you're just saying maybe I'm removing some dirt from the surface, but also little bits of I don't know what's in water, but little minerals are getting sort of put on top of the leather too. They're continuing to fill in all the little microscopic sections of the hide. Is that what you're getting at?
I think that is more about, even though there's very few fibers to speak of on that surface, on the surface of shell, I still think you're laying those in a uniform direction, so they're getting flattened out. Any wax that's in the leather, it tends to come to the surface.
It gets activated with the friction.
Yeah, and you're laying that down and smoothing that into a more uniform layer, which I think is where I think the water sort of just acts as kind of like a solvent in that case, where it just is mobilizing everything and then it evaporates.
Ah, that's pretty interesting. I've actually had really good results with just water and brushing, and I know a lot of people have an inclination to try to put as much polish on their boot or whatever as possible. I've actually found the opposite effect. If I put too much polish on, it starts to look like polish. It starts to look cloudy and waxy, which is probably not what you want. There are some people that are listening to the show that are leather crafters, and I wanted to try to create a resource for them. If I'm crafting a wallet, for example, or a boot, help me decide what leather to choose.
That's hard.
Too vague?
It's a hard 2-sentence. I mean, that's the way all the conversations start out, is, what are you making? And then you look at the leathers that are suitable for that
I want
application.
Patina. I want the most dramatic patina.
Okay. And what are you making?
I'm making a plain toe boot. Okay. Do you need more info?
Not necessarily. And you want something that's going to change? I mean, I would steer, to lighter colors of leathers that are veg retanned is where I would start. Not knowing anything else. Because I don't know what the manufacturing process is like.
I'm actually steam heating my leather as I last it.
Okay, then my recommendation stands.
The other thing that I'm doing that's a little different than other people is I use a lot of adhesives in my production.
Okay.
So would that help?
Sure. Yeah. So you're
Still the same light color veg tan stuff.
veg tan, but then you're kind of disqualifying the hot stuffed, super oily leathers because those, unless there's some sort of mechanical fastening that happens, like a Goodyear weld or a stitch down or a sidewall stitch or a Blake or one of those, just relying on glue alone for those oily leathers isn't a long-term plan.
Well, I have another business where I make jackets, and I really like a super worn in look. But I don't want it to look that way immediately. And in my process, I need pretty thin leather jacket. I can't wear like a belting leather jacket. Help me decide what to choose if I want a dramatic patina on that.
I mean, kind of the same thing. Go if you were coming to me, we're going to try to get something that's as thin as possible for us because we don't make super thin stuff to start with, and then something that's soft because if it's not soft, it's impossible to get on your body. It's just there's so many variables. I mean, it depends on what color you want and how quickly you want it to age, and the dark color over the lighter color underneath will give you a more dramatic aging, and then you can set it up so that dye is more likely to come off or less likely to come off. It just sort of depends on how quickly you want all that to happen. There's a lot of
You can control that to some degree.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you can in the most dramatic example, you think about, so take a natural piece of leather and then spray a thin layer or apply a thin layer of silicone to it and then put the dye on top of that. The dye is going to come off almost like right away.
Oh, neat.
So there's varying degrees of that sort of idea that you can employ.
Is that kind of like the Lux? What did you do a product that does that?
Yeah, it's like the Lux. I mean, Lux is designed to, you have to kind of earn the patina on that, but you do it's set up to age.
Does a Lux jacket exist?
Yes.
Who does that? I want to check it out.
That was a 316 jacket. Maybe it was one of their anniversary jackets. I can't remember. Maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this how the conversation went when you talking to those guys?
Kind of. I mean, he had one of the owners over there, Andrew, sent me over. He had a piece of leather from somewhere in the world that he liked. He's kind of liked the way the surface looked, but he wanted different aging attributes, different color. So that was a starting off point. So you've got the kind of the surface look and then the end use, and then you just kind of work through bringing those two things together, and picking a color. I mean, there's once you get that specific in terms of a look that you want, a color you want, and then a end use. I mean, the options are not crazy. I mean, you've narrowed it down quite a bit.
I feel like asking these questions about what leather to choose, it's like all depends. So I'm kind of bored by this conversation.
It does depend. It depends on if you want to change or you don't want to change. Are you selling this product to 1 million people, maybe? And those people, you're not going to have the chance to explain to them what patina is if they don't know. Or is this a 1 of 20 product that's a special release and the people are excited about it and they know leather? I mean, that's a completely different conversation.
It sounds like you need a salesperson to work with you directly. Maybe somebody like yourself or Tannery Row or wherever you're buying leather from. You can have a conversation about what you're looking for and say, I want patina, and then they'll work you through the process. It's not, so you're saying it's not as easy as just pick this.
Sure. It's all driven by the end customer at the end of the day. I mean, what do they want? I mean, what do they expect and what do they know? And I mean, it's complicated.
I'm participating in the round 2 of the Stitched on Patina Thunderdome. And by the way, those guys are great. We have to do our podcast together with the Stitched on Shoecast. But I picked actually 2 pairs for this year's event. Have you picked a pair yet?
I have a few more days. I think I'm going to enter a month late. Why? I guess at this point I am.
You have to.
I'm entering a month late, but.
Did you choose your pair based on like wanting an extreme patina?
No.
Or just because you wanted to try something?
I just I mean, for me, I'm not trying to win the contest. I just like to participate.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's got to be comfortable first. I mean, that's if it's not a comfortable,
You're going to wear for a few months.
if it's not a comfortable fitting piece of footwear, like you're kind of cooked already. I mean, maybe not. Maybe you're
You just be kind of miserable for
masochist.
a while.
But
Yeah.
I've got some ideas of things that I know that fit me well, so I can break those in. One of the contenders that I'm considering is a leather that we're doing called Cypress, which is a latigo with a wax on it, basically. But it's a newer, and I don't really know exactly how patina's in the color that I'm going to maybe wear. So it's more of like a discovery process for me.
So are you telling me the first thing you're thinking of is like what's the sizing and who's the maker? I mean, what's the first thing in your mind is like, does it fit? And you're thinking of the leather second?
Well, I mean, I guess they're kind of in concert at the same time, but it's got to be comfortable. I mean,
Yeah.
or at least it can become comfortable after it's broken in.
You know what's funny is I actually approached it this year from leather first because last year I wore natural Chrome Excel, which is one of those lighter veg retanned leathers, and it wore great. I went even harder. I went with some full veg this year, and that was my inclination before our conversation today. I was thinking full veg would give me a more dramatic patina effect.
Just don't tell me where you got the leather from.
Well, one of them is Essex from you. It's tan Essex, and it's on the Grantstone brass boot, and the other is a beep leather that I can't tell you about. It's a Miriam horsebutt from Oak Street, and I like them both. And so far, it's only been a month, but they haven't really changed a whole lot, if I'm honest. I think I talked to Ben from Stitch On about this. I think it'd be a good idea, and this is self-serving completely, for them to do a wallet-wearing Thunderdome, because your pant pocket is going to polish that thing every day. It's a lot different than on a boot. You know, I think you get a more dramatic patina on a wallet. Anyway, hey, Ben, if you're listening, let's do it. But for me, I was thinking leather first, and what was honestly, I forgot to pick something earlier. I wish I would have like planned way ahead, but I was looking for what's available in a lighter veg, and that's how I came up with those two. And I knew you would be upset about not using your leather, which is why I did both leathers. But I want to broaden the horizons and see what's out there.
I'm not upset. This will be our last podcast.
Yeah. Well, there's the other thing I was thinking about with these boots is, and I noticed from my experience in last year, I wore a leather sole for year one of Thunderdome, and it was great. It was super comfortable, but I forgot about snow and ice and grip. So last year I was kind of bummed out, like having to wear those all the time. Also, the moisture coming through turned out to be a little bit of a problem. And then the last thing on the leather soles, I wore through them at the very end. In month 6, they actually developed some holes. So this year I've got some grippier stuff. I think got a Vibram, so like a lug sole. And then the Oak Streets have this like dead stock Goodyear sole thing. I forget what it's called. So that was my thought process. And they had to look cool. I don't know. Spent a lot of money on boots, but have you picked out a final contender yet, or a couple?
Yeah, I haven't picked out yet.
You don't want to share? No.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, it's either going to be these. They're both Vibergs, but either that's a Cypress cap toe service boot, or a brown woolly Chrome XL service boot. And I just haven't.
What kind of soles are you thinking?
I think they both have Vibrams.
How do you say that?
I don't know.
Is it like chamois?
I guess. I think that people know what we're talking about. I think they're the one is a half sole, and the other one is maybe it's a Ridgeway. I can't remember.
This is my first half sole on those Oak Streets. It's kind of awesome. I really like the half sole. I think it might be my new move. All right, let's get into non-leather patina, which I'm holding a brass pen right now. I think I could get this to look like it used to look by polishing it. Is that your experience with brass and copper? So that means that there's something oxidizing on the surface of this. Why am I getting a change of color on this piece of brass.
This is over my head, but
Yeah.
there's something that the air,
But it's like you can scrape it off. Yeah.
right.
So
I mean, it's
that's
like a statue. I mean, like a bronze statue, they turn green, or like a brass something on brass gutters or whatever. I mean, they turn not brass, sorry,
copper gutters.
copper
Yeah.
gutters.
Yeah,
turn
but
green too.
I think that's where this gets confusing, though, is the word patina is applied to that example as well as leather, but it's like completely different. So, as an umbrella term, patina just means how things change.
Yeah, I mean, it's the change over time due to outside influence or inputs. I have a copper pen that I forced a patina on just as a
How do you do that?
with salt and ammonia.
Whoa.
You can like make it like it's like really dramatic, like a lot of green.
How's it look?
It looks pretty cool.
This is not changed that much.
I don't know if you can do it to brass or not, but you
Just
so
copper.
you do that. Why? That's what I use because I think it's easier, maybe. But you do that, and then you can spray like an acrylic, like clear coat over it, so it doesn't come off. Because if you use it, it'll come off.
Why do you think it is that we and many people are attracted to this sort of patinaed look on leather goods and copper pens?
I think the patina sort of exists alongside something that lasts. I mean, you're not going to develop a patina on something that you're only going to wear 10 times. You know, like a pair of raw denim or boots or that pen. I mean, it's something that you're going to use over and over and over again, and it's going to change based on how you use it, how many times you use it. So I think it's exciting because it's you're starting off with something that's of quality and watching it change for you. I mean, it's not changing for anybody else.
Unless you put salt and acid on it.
But even then, it's still changing for me. But
Called out.
Yeah.
I think there's something humanizing about it. You've heard of the concept of wabi sabi.
Yeah.
There's something about that too, where I've noticed that, and I love them. Like I'm looking at some Nomad tech accessories I have, or Apple iPhones and stuff, and there's something inhuman about those that are unrelatable. And I feel like when I see a piece of leather or this pen, there's something relatable to it. Like it feels like humans were meant to touch this thing. I don't know. There's something to that to me, and it's all those micro imperfections and the subtle changes that I find interesting. But yeah, I think you were probably more onto it, where it's like this is something that is developing to your personal style, and now it's yours and uniquely yours. You're like bound to it in an interesting way.
I mean, using a jacket as an example, you get something that's kind of doesn't really fit anybody, and then you wear it, and it gets the creases and the crooks of your elbows, and it starts to wear around the edges, and it gets to the point where you put it on, it just sort of hugs you. I mean, that's
same with the jeans, right?
Right.
Like maybe even more so. All right, do we have a news story today? All right, Nick, you got 60 seconds to bring up a news story before I make up one. Do we have one?
Let's see.
We don't have a news story.
I'm bad with that, with the news stories and the favorites.
Should we just skip right to favorites?
Let's see here. Google News.
I mean, I was actually going to call you out. I was going to call you up for the news segment, and I probably should ask you before. So let me ask you right now. I know that you love your Yeezy shoes.
Oh, God.
And
not for the reasons that most people.
And yesterday,
I don't love them.
They're Adidas, right?
Yeah, I have wide feet and not a lot of stuff.
Get defensive, Nick.
I am gonna defend myself.
I know how much you love your Yeezys.
I don't.
So yesterday, as we're recording this on the end of October here, and yesterday, Kanye got dropped from the Adidas brand. So as much as you love your Yeezys, I don't think you're gonna be able to get them again, dude.
I actually
you ordered a bunch a week ago.
No, I haven't. I have not worn them since that.
Oh,
happened.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of because like what I just wear other shoes. I can find other comfortable shoes.
I remember you telling me about those shoes maybe a year ago, saying, "Hey, Phil, you might want to try these out there. I find them to be really comfortable." I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." But I don't really wear sneakers. unless I'm running. You know, so why'd you make that choice? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but
Yeah, I just
you don't want to support that.
no.
Have you ever done business directly with Adidas?
Sure.
It's my understanding that their brands are in pretty big trouble right now. I was taking a look at their revenues are going way down, and I think Kanye was the only growth driver for that whole company. For all the Adidas brands, he was the only brand that was actually giving them any revenue growth. So it could be pretty tumultuous time for Adidas.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I haven't looked at their like sales and revenue numbers, but they're such an established brand and with soccer/football.
No, what projects have you worked on with them?
For shoes and for footballs.
Have these been released?
Yeah.
What shoes?
Let's see here.
Let me just search Adidas Horween.
Horween Adidas.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I don't know the name of the model. They did. I mean, speaking of patina, they did some light colored LaSalle,
Oh,
like super soft. Stan Smith.
I feel like they did Essex a long time ago, like a natural Essex Stan Smith.
I think that's right too.
I know it's like a little played out with like celebrities doing a thing, but you know, Jordans are kind of awesome, and I don't think that would have happened without his name being attached. I mean, we do sort of idolize celebrities and athletes and stuff, but it's fun. It doesn't have to be Kanye West to make a cool shoe, you know. And he designed those. Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't design anything. He picked it from a designer's catalog of sketches.
Yeah, I don't know about.
So
I don't know much about him in general.
Anybody can pick that. All right, you want to move on to favorites? I got a favorite, but I want you to go first because I know how much pressure you feel to answer.
Let's see here. I think I saved some stuff on my phone.
Oh, preparation.
So that I could, when this happened, I wouldn't be so.
Like when you find something you like, you just take a note
just like
in your
leave
phone.
it open on my phone so that I can.
It's working out great.
So far, so good. Favorites: mechanical keyboard. I think
that's it. That's
it.
What? Is there a particular one that you're into?
I have one from a company called Rama Works.
Oh yeah, they have cool stuff.
Which is I don't think I'll ever get another keyboard just because it was I think expensive, but I really like it. And I didn't fully realize what I was signing up for when I did order it because it came and I had to assemble it.
Oh,
fully, like
it's like an IKEA keyboard,
like the switches and like the PCB and like it didn't come with keycaps and like it was like one of those. It was pretty like it had all the pieces. It's not like I had to.
That's part of the fun of it, though, right?
Yeah,
for
but
a lot of people.
But then, like putting, or at least I found that putting the switches in is always not that easy either. Because if they get bent at all, then the keys don't work. So I had like dead keys, and I was like, I didn't know what I was getting into. It's fine. It's great now, but
this keyboard I find to be a little inappropriate for the podcast because it's too loud when I switch the cameras over.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, mine's inappropriate for
everything,
for the office for sure. I think. Yeah, I share an office with my sister. I think she's just gotten used to it at this point.
You just have to get those noise canceling headphones. All right, I've got a favorite, and I'm really having a lot of fun with this. It's the first time we've brought up a video game. I think I've been playing Overwatch 2. And I think you and I played the beta together. We're nerds, total nerds. I really like this game, and I think the reason I like it is because friends play with me. There's this thing that happens I've noticed in the video game world where like everybody plays one game and then they're good with it after a couple months and they switch to another one. So right now is the moment where like all my friends are hanging out together. So at night it's really fun. Honestly, it's a fun friend hangout. But also the game itself is a little bit controversial. People don't like it. In particular, people that played Overwatch 1 from the beginning don't like Overwatch 2. And the main differences are it used to be 6 versus 6, and now it's 5 versus 5. Everything is much more fast-paced. It's like a little imbalanced. And then the thing people hate the most, which is bizarre because it's free now. People don't like that it's free to play and you have to pay for cosmetics. Where before you would buy the game and as you played, you'd get these loot boxes and they would like give you gifts every now and then. So people are bummed out by the prices that Activision Blizzard wants to charge for cosmetic skins, which is people get mad over so much nonsense. Anyways, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'd like to play with you whenever you can.
We'll see.
We'll see. And that's the show for today. This is again our first episode after reviews are in. It seems like people are digging the show. So good job, Nick.
Good job, Phil.
I'm proud of you. And everybody else, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, actually, I haven't shown you this, Nick, yet, but we've received some emails with some questions, and somebody wants to help me out with some JR Souls. If anybody else has any questions, comments, things you want us to bring up, people you want us to talk to, let us know. You can send an email to fullgrainpodcast@gmail.com. We've got clips going up on our YouTube channel too. So if you want to see our ugly faces, hi camera, you can check it out on YouTube. It's just under Full Grain Podcast. All right. Thanks again, Nick. Until next time, see you later.
Thanks, Phil. See ya.